cut here. We did it on to the end of the
Yeah, we did the
right?
veto, yeah.
So then you have the ribs. You have 12 ribs. If I want to ask you about the true ribs or false ribs, I will ask you on the skeleton, which shows you that which ones are directly connected, which one are the false ribs. But the structure of the rib that you have to know, or this part, you have to know that this is the, that's not the good one. That this is the head, is the head of the rib, neck, tubercle, and body. These are the parts that you have to know. Head, neck, tubercle, body. Then you have the sternum. For the sternum, you have to know three parts. This is manubrium, body, and xiphoid process. Then you have the vertebrae. For the vertebrae, you have to know that the first cervical vertebrae you have to identify it. This is the first cervical vertebrae. We put the separate one for you. You will tell me that this is the atlas. And you know this is atlas because it's just a ring of it. And this is axis, because you can see the dance process. Then you should identify between the three major types of the vertebrae that you have. This one is called cervical vertebrae. You know that this is cervical because it has three foramens instead of one. The body is very small and the spinous process has two parts. This is the thoracic vertebrae, and you know that's thoracic because it has a medium-sized body, it has the long and sharp spinous process, and it has just one form. This is the...
For the test, do we have to know the foramens and the spinous process, or are we just going to have to identify each?
Just know that there are three foramens, and because there are three foramens, so this is the cervical one. The only thing that I may ask you here is that what type of the vertebrae is it? And you will tell me that this is the cervical.
Cervical, okay.
And then you have the lumbar. For the lumbar one, this is lumbar. You know that this is lumbar because the body is very large and the spinous process is short and thick. So the other thing that you have to know here is identification between the different types of the vertebrae: thoracic, cervical, and lumbar. Right. And then you have to know the parts of a typical vertebrae. The parts of a typical vertebrae are here. This is body. This is spinous process. These are transverse processes, and these two are called pedicels. So body, vertebral foramen, spinous process, transverse processes, and these two are called pedicels here. Then you have the sacrum. In the sacrum, the structure that you have are, sacrum consists of 5 fused foramens. The structures that you have to know are the sacral foramina. These are the sacral foramina. Sacral canal. If I want to ask you about the sacral canal, I will put a pointer here where you go inside the canal. And at the end of the canal, you have another opening here, which is called sacral hiatus. This is the sacral hiatus. And then you have your coccyx. This is coccyx. Then you have the pectoral here. Pectoral here consists of 2 bones. The first one is the scapula. This is your scapula. The parts of the scapula you have to know is the bony ridge here that we call spine. At the end of the spine you have the acromion, so the flat one is acromion. The sharp one here is called coracoid process of the scapula, and this is the glenoid cavity. The next bone of the pectoral girdle is the clavicle. In clavicle you should be able to identify 2 ends. The round end here is called sternal end, and the flat end here is called acromial end. Then you have the bones of the upper limb. The bones of the upper limb are humerus. So this is your humerus. This is the humerus. The structure of the humerus that you have to know is head. This is the head. This is the greater tubercle, which is a little bit superior. This is the lesser tubercle. Then here you have medial and lateral epicondyles. You are not responsible to say which one is medial, which one is lateral, but you have to know that these are the epicondyles. Then the round structure here is the capitulum. This is the trochlea. And here you have the shallow cavity, which is called olecranon. I'm sorry, the coronoid fossa. This is another fossa here, the deeper one, at the posterior part. They call it olecranon fossa. Right? So these are the structures of the humerus. You have the ulna. Number 1, you should be able to identify the ulna. This is ulna because it has a structure like the beak, the bird's beak. And then the structure. This process here is called olecranon process. This process here is called coronoid process. There is a notch here that we call it trochlear notch. There is a small notch here inferior to it that we call it radial notch. Then you go all the way down. This falling drop here is the styloid process. This is your radius. In the radius.
And that's what we can feel right here, you said?
Yeah, this is olecranon. What you can feel. That's true. And this is your radius. The radius consists of a round head. This is the head. This rough area here is called radial tuberosity, and then again at the end, the falling drop here is a styloid process. Then you have your carpals. The carpals, you are not responsible for the name, just know that you have 8 carpal bones. Then you have 5 metacarpals. We'll start counting from the thumb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 14 phalanges in all the fingers. You have 3 that we call them proximal, middle, and distal. Proximal, middle, and distal. Just in the thumb, you have 2 proximal and distal. That goes about the upper limb. Then you have the pelvic girdle. Your pelvic girdle consists of 2 bones. Each bone is called the coxal bone or hip bone. Each hip bone consists of the ilium, which is the superior big one. The posterior one here is called ischium, and the anterior one here is called pubis, right? Then the structures that you have to know here, you have to know that we have a deep depression here that we call it acetabular. It receives the head of the femur. You have the big foramen here, which is called obturator foramen. This is the obturator foramen. And then when you take the hip bone like this, which ischium is posterior and pubis is anterior, these two are called posterior superior and posterior inferior iliac spines. These two are called anterior superior and anterior inferior iliac spines. Then you have the bones of the lower limb. You have the femur here. In femur, you have to know that this is the head, and this is the neck. This is the greater trochanter. This is the lesser trochanter. All the way here you have the body. Then you have the epicondyles, medial and lateral epicondyles are here. Medial and lateral condyles, these two are called condyles. They are here. I think that's all about this. That's true. And patella is a small bone. You have it on the skeleton, which moves here on the surface of the femur. Then you have the fibula. Fibula is a long bone here. About the fibula, you have to know that this is the head of the fibula, and where you have this structure, which is like the falling drop, this one, this is the lateral malleolus. This is called lateral malleolus.
How can you tell this is the fibula?
Because it has a round head here that's very thin, and then at the end here it has a lateral malleolus. This is the tibia. Tibia is the larger one. In the tibia, you have to know the condyles. These are the condyles which connect to the condyles of the femur. At the anterior surface here is called tibial tuberosity, and at the end, this is medial malleolus. Medial malleolus. Then you have the tarsals. You have 7 tarsals. The largest one, which makes your heel, is called calcaneus, talus, navicular, cuboid, medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiform. So one more time, this is calcaneus, talus, navicular, cuboid, medial, intermediate, lateral, cuneiform. And then you have your metatarsals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have phalanges, the same story, proximal, middle, distal, just in the big toe you have proximal and distal. And that's it.